Live here in one moment is the good old integration between Zoom and YouTube kicks in here. So a couple things that I guess I want to start out with is, today's WTF Wednesday. We have a special guest, Steve West. Steve is the man, and I'll jump into that in a second here. We're going to talk about picking your customer. Don't let them pick you. And Steve and I had an awesome conversation yesterday, but I want to give a little background for anybody that hasn't heard this story before. Steve has been on our calls before, and I first met Steve over the phone. This is back before Teams and Zoom and all that, that fun stuff. Back, I want to say it was around 2007-ish
Right?
when I became a Kaseya partner. Steve forced me to write a check for $60,000 to buy Kaseya, the RMM agent, and I never looked back, and it was one of the best investments that I had ever made. Um, but I want to say this: I ran into Steve for the first time. I met Steve in person for the first time last June at PAX 8 Beyond, and Steve walked up to the booth and he said who he was. And without getting sappy, I almost had a tear in my eye because this man helped me immensely in my beginning days of becoming an MSP. And I owe so much to Steve in what he did to help me out. He didn't just sell me product, he sold me on what I need to do to become a successful MSP. And his previous experience as an MSP, sharing his stories, helping me to believe in myself and believe in the direction that I was going in as far as becoming an MSP, uh, was just tremendous. And it's one of those things that, you know, you find somebody like that, and you think back, there's somebody back in our beginning days that really helped to inspire us. For me, that is Mr. Steve West, and I thank you for that.
That's that's very flattering. I really appreciate those kind words. I don't know that I warrant that. I certainly hope I live up to that every day because I that's really much appreciated and thank you. That's very generous. Very generous.
You
Yeah,
just thought
and
of him first as a pesky sales guy. Now he's a mentor and a good guy, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
yeah,
was that transition?
right.
I'm the pesky sales guy that has a complex that works very hard not to be that pesky sales guy because I spent my first half of the career on the other side of that call and I hated it just as much as most of the guys hate it. So I try to change it up a little bit. I try to give a better
Yeah,
experience by because it's at the end of the day it's all about the business and that's I think kind of dovetailing into what Dan is saying. I think what Dan experienced in, or obviously in the early Kaseya days, if any of you know Max Pruger, it was me and Max going back and forth every year for the top sales guy. And we're talking 2006 or 2012, back when I like to say Kaseya was still the Republic and not the evil empire everybody gives them the label of these days. And what I'll say is this, is that I didn't even sell this. It was a business plan, just like Dan's saying. I sold the business plan. My passion is investing in our space of the market and helping us recapture the value we once represented, right? Um, 20 years ago, when we set out to run the business better, when we stopped wanting to roll trucks and sell retainers and sell time because time has a naturally limiting factor and we couldn't make more of it. It was very hard to scale a business as a service provider and be consistent in your financial performance. As we made those transitions, there was value that our customers saw in us. Fast forward 20 years with the mass adoption of the business plan, utilizing similar tools, we've commoditized ourselves. We're now a cost factor. We're no longer an investment by our customers. We're stuck working with the office manager who has a budget. And what is the psychology of a cost? I always want my cost to go down because that indicates improve profitability. That's where one's mind goes immediately, and which is why so many of us MSPs and my partners run MSPs on the side even today, even though we all tried to sell ours and get away from it. It seems to find you and hunt you down and suck you back in at times, right? Uh, you know what we're we're on a mission to get that value back. We want to stop being a price point. We want to get away from being a cost that everybody's looking to drive down, because trust me, your costs aren't going down. Your people need raises. Your cost of operations, I mean, look at the cost of eggs, cost of power and everything in this world has gone up dramatically, especially in the last 5 years. And I say that as an old guy, right? It's kind of hard and it's a little bit shocking sometimes to look and reflect back. But if you look at that, you can't be in the marketplace doesn't balance out well if you have people trying to get you to charge less, but your cost of delivery is going up. That's not a good financial model for any of us, which kind of goes into what Diane and I were talking about yesterday, leading this meeting, the whole pick your customers and don't let them pick you. And the reason that we were having that conversation is I have the luxury of speaking to thousands of MSP a year, working for the different vendors and in my coaching practice with some of the services I provide. And the one thing I hear consistently is that margins are eroding. We have, because when COVID hit, we all went out and bought a bunch of tools to solve all these new unique problems. Well, those problems have been solved. Now we have tool stack creep. We have bloated tool sets. We have eroding margins. We have an ever increasing competitive landscape, whether it be from new people starting in the industry, the guy that's been down the street for 10 years, or the fact that there's so much consolidation going on in the marketplace, which then builds much deeper pockets in some of those people around us to go out and market more effectively and do things that we simply can't afford to do as independent MSPs. And you compile that with the fact of this whole new, we were just talking about Copilot, AI technology. You look at automation platforms and what's being done, and the combination of the two, guys, we can't fool ourselves. We have to be very honest with ourselves. In 3 to 5 years, 40 to 60% of what we do daily, the password resets, the account setups, and adding users to 365, and these things that are these basic administrative things our clients turn to us for, those are going to be available with a bot. Right? And so we have this declining value proposition that we've got to recapture, or we'll be working for pennies. And we're not going to hit EBITDAs that are 30% plus. We're going to be, we're going to be lucky if we have a 10% EBITDA, and that's not a way to run a business and survive.
One
Right?
thing I wanted to mention, I go back to, my beginning days, and, I remember our first managed client, and, I want to say that they were somewhere in the neighborhood of a couple grand a month, the very first one. Second one was 4,500. It started at 4,500, grew to 9,600 a month. That was our second client. For me, those are two big wins, to start out. But as we continued to grow, every client that came in that said, "Hey, yeah, I want to spend money with you," we get like this, like, "Ooh, money, money. They want to spend money, and are they really the right client for us?" And I can guarantee that I wasn't picking my clients; they were picking me. Um, I was taking anybody and everybody because they had a checkbook and they were really willing to write a check. And over time, eventually learned that, and it's cliche, but not all revenue is good revenue. Not every client is the client that we want. And we really need to pick and choose. We need to pick those clients that, fit into our ICP, ideal client profile, and if we don't have an ICP, then we're just being everything to everyone, and we'll take whoever's willing to spend money with us. And that's where, our conversation yesterday just, I
Yeah.
think,
Opened up.
just took off and opened up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that too, because you're exactly right. So think about it this way. If you're trying to cover multiple business, especially in today's world of governance, regulation, cyber insurance, and the requirements behind data and security that are required there, it's not, it's almost impossible to be a generalist anymore. You can't just be
Yeah.
an IT guy. right? You've got to figure out where you're going to invest your time to be a better business person within a market space where you're going to bring value to that business that they recognize beyond the password reset or that desktop that you've put on their or that laptop you put in their hands, right? We've got to figure out how we're going to help their business because these requirements and everything's are changing. And I don't know how many of you track a lot of what's happening in the governance marketplace, but the DOJ has things in front of the House and Senate that will put requirements on any organization with a certain amount of records. You have people like HIPAA in the last couple of months have quite dramatically increased the requirement behind compliance, and a lot of things that were recommendations are now literally requirements. There's big changes in CMMC and the DoD, and any of you who work with people who do government contracting know that this is a huge topic, and there's a bunch of momentum in the marketplace because the government is going to audit this, right? They are doing. You have to bring a C3PAO in and do a review. And so you have to have compliance or you lose those contracts you're working on. There's all these business implications that are happening around us that have technology relationships that if we're simply generalist, we'll never really be able to bring value of consultation and help that client. They'll be left wanting somebody who can give them more guidance, right? So the
Yeah.
real question, one of the things that we drove to is how that whole concept of an ICP. What is my ICP? Well, like you said, Dan, 20 years ago, it was anybody with a warm beating heart that was willing to open their wallet. But now it
Right.
can't be that. That's simply not going to work any longer. It can't just be the guy that walks in the door and says, I need help with 20 computers, right? I believe that now is the time, if you don't want to continue to be commoditized, if you don't want to continue to see eroding margins, if you don't want to be displaced by automation and bots and the threat of this different technologies, you have to become strategic in how you invest your time, money, and energies in picking those marketplaces you're going to become an expert in. Where can you show thought leadership? Where can you bring value beyond that desktop and notebook and just the fact that I give you computing capacity and capabilities? Simply taking them to the cloud is not a differentiator. You know, we take them to the digital workplace. Yeah, so does everybody else on the internet. We increase your efficiencies. I swear to God, if I don't think I can go to a single MSP website without seeing the words, we help you be more efficient, which unfortunately is kind of unrealistic. I've never seen an MSP standing over a gal at a desk with a stopwatch seeing if she does something faster, right? What we really should say, what's anybody anybody know what's the output of increased efficiency? What's the result? There's two things that I usually draw to as a result. There's probably many, but what are some of the top things that are a result of increasing efficiency? Anybody? Profit and time.
Profit.
Efficiency is a form of measurement. What we really should be talking about is the results and the outcomes. Well, in that similar vein, if I'm going to work with CPA firms, I need to understand how the SEC and FTC are regulating these people, what the expectations of their business are, and what the financial implications of not paying attention or having a program in place could be. And honestly, do further research and understand what frequency it occurs at, who it's occurred to, because I call it the scary guy in the closet or the monster under the bed syndrome. You're gonna I would anybody disagree that one of the hardest parts about selling security is your customer says, I've never been hacked, I don't need that, right? That doesn't happen to me. That they wouldn't look at we're small, we would never be a target, right? And yet, if you look at statistically, a 68% on average, if you kind of measure, I see anywhere from 50 to 75, 80, 68% of small businesses literally have some sort of breach annually. They just don't know it.
I hear that stuff all the time from my little clients, and I just say, when they say you'll never be hacked, I said, eventually you will. You're fresh meat.
Yeah. It's not
Mm-hmm.
if, it's when. It's not if, it's when. I use it as I use a castle analogy. No matter how high we build those walls, strong those gates are, even if we give the peasants and royalty little badges to say what floor of the castle they can go to. Well, listen, even Troy was the greatest castle, unpenetrable castle of all time. Even that fell because of a lazy guard, right? Somebody not doing their job. So no matter how big we build those walls and strong those gates are, eventually the likelihood, I mean, these are defense mechanisms. Anybody follow football or any type of sports? What happens when you're on defense? Eventually somebody scores. Nobody can protect from everything, right? So what are we going to do when that eventually occurs? But you have to be able to talk in business terms to help your customer understand the value of that investment they need to make as it relates to a financial outcome it means for them. So what I like to encourage guys to do is pick those 2 or 3 fields where they are your ICP. Where are you more naturally drawn? Is it CPA firms? Is it manufacturers? Is it medical or dental facilities? It's hard to go. It's going to be hard to survive if you keep going wide. You got to go deep, because now we can start becoming more of that. Everybody, we're your trusted advisor. Well, a trusted advisor helps me do one of 3 things. It helps me sell more services or product. It helps me gain profitability or capture time back and efficiency, that efficiency term, or it mitigates my risk from possible loss. Those are business outcomes that people should be investing in. Agreed? Anybody agree? Disagree?
Yeah, yeah, and and here we're talking about, I mean, there are some MSPs that are 100% vertically focused. Like I've seen MSPs in my area that all they do is dental, and you see their trucks on the road, and they talk, they're a technology company, and it's dental focused, and to start out a business that way, it's really difficult, right? Because like we talked about earlier, the whole, ooh, money, I got some money coming in. We need that money to start out,
Mhm.
right? And I think we're all, unless you just started an MSP yesterday, we're all in a position in which we've got revenue coming in and from multiple industries. And this is where we can start to become a little bit more narrowly focused. And that doesn't mean you ignore the clients that you have, but you become a little more narrowly focused on what is your ICP. And you figure out, okay, maybe it's somebody outside the industries that you're serving right now, which you can do. There's nothing wrong with that. Or you might have a collection of certain, let's say CPA firms today, and you're like, all right, so I'm gonna, one of my 2 or 3 ICPs is going to be CPA firms or somebody in some level of finance. And then maybe I'm going to focus on car dealerships because of all the regulation that they're going through. And then you pick a third one. So like yesterday, Steve, you said you really want to see that focus on 2 or 3. But we are all in a perfect position today to continue to serve the clients we have and focus on 2 or 3 different specialties and verticals that we can go deep in instead of, like we said, go wide.
Well, and there's a couple reasons to do that. let Reflecting back on some of the early comments about focus of energy and time and tool sets. Again, if we try to be too wide, we're constantly chasing the rabbit at the hole, right? We're always having to have another tech we're learning. We're having to expand skill sets. We never have enough skill sets. So the more we can bring that into focus, right? The more that we can say, okay, we've selected these 3 industries. Here's the applications most commonly used. Here's the things those business need. We can then invest in our own infrastructure. We can then invest in our own people in a way that's actually going to increase that value to the end customer. And anytime we increase value, we start driving that business growth. We start being seen as an investment because they get something out of it. They've either mitigated risk, they've become more profitable, or I'm helping them sell more because I'm having that strategic conversation with knowledge of their industry. A lot of guys say, well, how do I get there? I'm like, find out if you're going to pick lawyers, find out where all the lawyers go to drink. Stop going to vendor conferences a guy that works for vendors. I hate to not see your pretty faces, but you're spending money going out there, listen to me try to sell you more, and everybody talk about how we do business, which causes you to try to, again, chase the bouncing ball. Stop. If you pick lawyers, go to lawyer conferences, walk around for a while, listen to those conversations, learn their lingo, figure out what's important to them, figure out what's going to be valuable to them, and then figure out how to deliver that as a business. That'll propel you much faster than hiring some web marketing team that's going to redo your website, because conversations are what lead to value business. And Dan, you brought it up. Why do I recommend picking 2 to 3 different industries? Well, that's how you future proof yourself against downturn in a specific industry. Maybe I pick car dealerships, medical companies, and dental, like pharmacies and dentists. Well, car industry has up and downs. right? There's times where they're investing more money and they're selling a lot of cars, and times they're not. I need to protect my own business against the implications of their industry. Again, when you're spread very wide, you're being hit by those type of nuances constantly, and you're constantly have to sell somebody new, readjust pricing, or losing a customer to attrition because somebody down the road is going to come in and underbid you by $5. Well, in order to avoid that, we have to get back into that executive discussion and talk about how am I going to help you make more money? How am I going to make you more profitable? Or how am I going to protect your money from the bad guys? Right. And if we can have those conversations that are valuable and strategic, they're not going to go shop us because we talk about being a trusted business partner. Well, how do you do that? You help them get to business results. Technical results are great, but it's a necessity of the business. It's a factor of function. It's not actual value unless we can correlate it to one of those three things. Otherwise, I was just on a call with a gentleman a few minutes ago. My customers just don't understand. Well, let's start talking to them about things they will understand. Let's pick those people that we know we can talk their language. What industries do you kind of understand how they make their money? What industries do you understand what's important to them and what their customers like? I have a dentist. If I say I want to pick dental, what do I want as a customer of my dentist? Well, now I know what he faces to sell more dental work. How am I, as his service provider, helping him get more patients? Because if that's what he sees I'm really there to do, and not just make sure he has access to SharePoint, I am not easily displaced or replaced by the guy down the street who simply can come in and talk about his SharePoint. And that's how I want to pick my customers.
Another thing, well, first and foremost, if anybody has any questions or comments, please feel free to jump in, at any point. But, another thing too is when focus on a specific vertical, and you are, at a point where, all of a sudden you're like, hey, I've got, 5, 6, 7, 8 CPA firms or auto dealerships, and you're out there prospecting, and you throw that out saying that, hey, I've got a number of CPA firms. I mean, we've all heard, we've been prospecting, and someone says, well, do you know this software application? Do you specialize in this? Because I really need someone to focus on this, and that's a specialty, a specialist. And we all know that, it's how we connect the dots. We don't need to know the actual application, but as long as we know how to manage that application, we know the inside, know it inside and out from perspective of, how it's going to function for them. Um, you know, I lost track a little bit here, but at the end of the day, we
You
have
make yourself.
clients that feel we
I'll
have those
jump in
clients
there.
that feel like we need to know that immensely. And if we know how to connect the dots and we know how to solve the problem, because we all have that unique thought process where, you look at something and it's more about the common sense, it's more about the logical steps in solving that problem. So we can handle anything, but if they hear that we have 5, 6, 7, 8 CPA firms, they're like, oh, wow. I mean, that to them, that provides value because they're like, it's not your first rodeo, right?
Hmm. Well, and I'll say this too, and especially even more so if you can advance that conversation. There's not only that I have 8 other CPA firms, but I help them file 20% more tax returns annually than they did before I worked with them.
Hmm.
That's what they want to hear.
Right.
It's not just that I work with them, but what is that business? I want to give you 2 examples of other partners without revealing their secret sauce in too much. But I'm going to give you an example. I know a MSP, and he works with he's in a port city, so he's in a city that has a lot of shipping and receiving. Think Seattle. It's not Seattle, but think Seattle ports. And he found that he was doing business with one of the people that ran one of these shipping container companies, where what happens is when the containers come in, he provides the longshoremen to offload those containers. So that business needed his IT, but when he actually went in and had a business conversation about what keeps them up at night, how do they make their money, how do they go about, what he found was the thing they struggled with most was having a dispatch board that consistently could get longshoremen to the piers to offload those cargo containers consistently predictably and without fail. And it actually was a problem that everybody, all of those companies that provided those services for the shipping and receiving, the freight forwarding companies that provided those services, all of them had the same problem. They all were trying to run their own dispatch board, and somebody wouldn't show up, or people weren't being accountable. So not only did he go in and solve the business problem, but what he actually went out and built for this customer, he says, listen, let me see if I can help you out. So he built a call center where he started doing those calls and dispatch for that person. And in fact, because he understood how to leverage the technology and build a call center and the business problem he was trying to solve, he got so good at it that he didn't miss a single dispatch in for a year, 24/7, 365. Everybody showed up, didn't miss one. Those containers got offloaded. That that organization, they grew and they became more profitable because they didn't have all these problems and people that weren't showing up and failed contract delivery. Huge impact to that business. He was able to take that call center mentality and he went right down that shipyard to every freight forwarding company. And now in that space, in his market, every one of them works for him. He's the only dispatch board and he doesn't miss a dispatch 24/7, 365. So he goes in and he doesn't sell by the desktop. He's not constrained by those. He has a cost of operation, he has a margin he wants to make, and that sets your price. And for that price, not only do you get your desktops and your laptops and your access to the cloud, all the security you need, everything that we commonly throw into technology, but he actually sells the service of the dispatch of the longshoreman as part of his solution of technology. And that sets him apart from anybody, and he's contained, captured, and owns that market space. Nobody else can do it, but he's not selling what everybody else is selling. He found what they really needed and he delivered that, and then brought the rest of his services to bear based upon that being the tip of his spear, because that's what had the greatest value to that audience. I'll give you another example. How many of you would love to charge $300 a desktop? No debate. One of my clients, he works in two marketplaces. He does medical clinics, not hospitals, not pharmacies, not dentists. He specifically focuses on urgent care clinics, and he specifically focuses on car dealerships. What do you think he sells to the car dealerships? He walks in and says, here's the FTC report I help you provide every 6 months. Something that's incredibly hard for them to generate and manufacture. He's solving this problem because without that, the fines, the regulatory constraints, the fact that they could have to halt doing business if they breach certain things that are required of them, that has the greatest, that literally has a greater implication on their business than whether or not my PC turns on. And so he found that thing that kept them up at night the most, the thing that could be the most, and that's what he sells. I deliver technology to you to let you sell more cars, and with a click of a button, all of those reporting and audits that were constant pain in your, I've done it for you. And each one of them, they write that check every month. They don't even debate. It's not even a cost discussion because the value is so great to their business, they really don't care what it costs. And
And
then he has the pharmacies. But go ahead.
the one thing about keeping the computers on at night or keep, making sure the computers turn on, when they come in the morning and those type of things. As we talked about yesterday, I mean, those are things that, we all can do in our sleep. Those are, routine maintenance things that we are mature enough that those things should just be happening like a well-oiled machine, right?
Yeah.
And that's where we got to change our conversations. And you talked about secret sauce. The secret sauce, in my opinion, is conversation. Conversation, and it's sometimes difficult conversations, discussions about things that we feel like, ooh, I don't know if I should be asking them that. If we start talking about their profitability, if we start talking about challenges with their employees, maybe there's bottlenecks, where are your customers upset? you know, I think some of those conversations, we should be mature enough to say, we need to have these conversations. It's okay to have these conversations because it's beyond the technology. If we're here about business outcome, we cannot assist them with business outcome if we don't have those type of conversations. And, we cannot feel as if those are inappropriate discussion items, because once you start having those conversations, you are connecting with them. You pull them into a conversation. And when I say them, I'm talking about, the C levels, whether it be business owner, business leader, maybe for larger organizations, their department heads. We are opening up conversations with them that we could only dream of, because then they're giving us insights into their business. They are truly looking at us as business advisors, not technologists. And business advisors is what separates us from the competition and allows us to be able to grow that business and build that wall around them, which is our MSP, keeping the competitors out. Because last thing that we need is a MSP knocking on their door and start having those business conversations, and them start thinking, you know, Billy Bob has never asked me about any of that. Maybe I need to schedule a meeting with this company and just learn a little bit more. We don't want them on our turf. And the way we keep them off our turf is through making sure we're taking care of them, and we're taking care of the true needs that will end up with the result of some business outcome.
Yeah. Listen, if as a business owner myself, and I'm sure all of you would agree, it's really hard to have true business partners, people that help me succeed. But I can go outside, turn around 3 times, and find 4 different guys who will sell me outsourced IT, right? But it's really hard to find somebody who's got a genuine interest in helping me be successful in my chosen field. Not just helping me be technically successful or putting another firewall in to make me feel a sense of security that's oftentimes a false sense, but rather somebody who's really interested in investing some time and discussion in how I can get my main objectives accomplished. Because trust me, if you went into a company and said, "What are your top 3 goals for the year?" It's probably not implementing MFA, right? It's not a technical conversation. And I don't know, Frank, I want to call on you, Frank. I hate to call you out. I hope you're still there with us. I don't know what you're seeing, being more on the vendor side, but I'm seeing a lot of things. Like I'm seeing CPA firms, I'm seeing not only accounting firms, but different types of consultancies, people who already have those business relationships, insurance companies. Guess what they're doing? They're buying the small struggling MSP. Why? Because they're already having that strategic conversation. I'm talking to those guys. They're recognizing that the current technology providers are simply doing that, just providing tech. There's nothing strategic, and they're going to eat your lunch, because getting the technical chops. I mean, I've got a 25-year-old CompTIA Plus certified son who's looking for a job. Anybody hiring? He's in Salem, Oregon. He'll work remote. But that's what. But and he's cheap. It's not hard for them to go build a practice that lets them deliver 365. But they already have that. They're already having that money conversation as an accountant. They already know what their balance sheet looks like and how they might impact that. Don't lose to them. Don't let them take our industry and take it over, like we've seen so often with insurance and other things like that. Because what's going to happen is they're willing to have the conversation. The very nature of what they do is having that conversation. And if we're not willing to have that, tech is commoditizing, continues. We've seen it over 20 years. The momentum isn't slowing, it's actually increasing. And the tech isn't going to be enough. We have to become strategic partners. We've talked about it for years. Guys, you're not doing it. It's very few people that are actually doing it. I see some chats coming in. So it's really important, in my opinion, if you want to future-proof you. And guys, I love the small MSP. I was that guy. It's near and dear to my heart. It's what I live and talk all day long. I wish I charged for my services more often, because I can't help but want to help people, right? And I'm hearing the same problems. And it doesn't matter if they have 200 endpoints or if they have 5,000 endpoints. Everybody's having the same conversation with me. My margins are eroding. I don't have enough tech time to even pay attention to all the tools that I have today, because I'm trying to be everything to everyone. And I'm not really sure where my next sale is going to come from and how I'm going to take I have this great business plan, but it doesn't seem to be executing because the market changes so quickly on us that I can't build a 3-year plan and count on that executing against it. So insulate yourself from that, protect yourself, become a business professional in 2 to 3 industries, much like your investment portfolio is diversified. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, but don't put them in 10, put them in 3. And
I
then really
remember,
work those 3.
I remember, when I was evaluating different RMM providers, and I found you and others. You sold me without selling me. I mean, you helped me through my questions more. I don't want to say more so, but maybe just as much, maybe more, about my my needs as far as building out my MSP practice as much as the product itself. And one of the things that, I was worried about so many things. I was worried about this and that, and, what if we offer this, and what if we include that, and am I gonna get screwed over with this and that, and one of the things that you said to me, and it sticks into my head today, and I think about this a lot, is that 90% of the things that you're worried about, Dan, will never happen, will never become an issue. You just need to move forward. And this correlates to the good old Guy Kawasaki of don't worry, be crappy. Just move forward. Just get out there and get it done and adjust as you go. And you were right. A lot of the things that I was concerned about that could have held me back from moving forward, I just plowed through, and I think that is one of the biggest things that we need to focus on with our clients. And but the key here was selling without selling. And if we're in there talking about what we do versus what we can do for them, then we're taking the wrong approach. We want to talk about what we can do for them. And again, it's business outcome, but I think we just need to think about it in a different light, in a different way. Um, because again, if all we're focused on is the things we do and we're talking about ourselves, they don't care. They don't care about, all the things that how great we are, and just all those things that hold us back.
It doesn't matter. Listen, we're a what's in it for me society. Let's be honest with ourselves, right? These people are focused on what they get out of something. So let's talk to them about what they get. It doesn't matter what we do. I mean, it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain. As long as they're walking a yellow brick road and they're enjoying the poppies and the monkeys aren't getting them, they just want to know that they're having that experience. They don't really care what's happening behind the curtain, right? Um, I want to use a little quick exercise. And when it comes to marketing, a little bit off the pick your customers, but this I think will dovetail back to it. How many of you go to like community events, chamber of commerce, some sort of somewhere where you're out there talking to people about what you do, trying to build market? Anybody? I'm sure there's some of you, right? Um, I recently was coaching a gentleman in a very small rural Eastern Washington town. And he had been going to these conferences and finding that not only was it him, but 7 other guys that were other service providers were showing up. They were all basically saying the same thing. And while he was making good business connections and finding people he could go grab a beer with, he wasn't really selling anything. And so what I said to him is I said, well, let's try a different take on this. First of all, you can't use any 3-letter or 4-letter acronyms. You can't speak tech at all. You can't talk about computers and what you do until somebody asks. So what I want you to do is go get into conversations, and I want you to ask a lot of questions. Anybody ever read of like the Toyota rule of 7, that you really never know the answer to a question until you ask the same question in a different way 7 times? Well, I want you to go do that. I want you to get really down into what their pain points are. How do you make your money? Understand their business. Like you were going to go work for them. I want you to understand that business like you were going to take it over. And at some point in that conversation, that person's going to look to you. If you're showing genuine interest, you're giving them good feedback, they're seeing value in the conversation, they're going to say, well, what do you do? And you're only allowed to say 3 things. I help my clients make more money, or I help them be more profitable or have time to coach their kids' baseball team, and I protect their money from the bad guys. There's only three answers you can give them. That's what you do. Because frankly, those are the outcomes they're interested in. Those are the results they want to consume. So talk in the result. Don't talk. I don't care what you do. What do I get for it? And he went in, had those conversations, and walked out with 4 new clients. It took him about 2 months to bring them all together. But from that one meeting, he picked up 4 new clients. And he said, I never talked tech. I told them what the result was. When they asked me how I did it, I said, well, I come out, I learn your business, and I figure out how to help you invest wisely in technology to deliver your business goals and results that you're looking for. They say, well, I want to learn more about that. He went out, he was able to do a walkthrough. He found ways he could save them money, ways he saw inefficiencies he could make recommendations on, and he landed all 4. But he never led with tech. He never called himself a service provider. In fact, everything he built wasn't a result around making sure that you have the right passwords in place. It was all about how he helped their company be more financially sound. And that's what people wanted. Sell them what they want. It's an easier sale. Everybody tells me it's really hard to convince my clients to do something. Well, stop trying to convince them to do something. Figure out what they want and sell that.
Yeah,
Because
I
I
think we're
guarantee you,
so quick. We're so quick to
yeah.
go in there with what our, what we can do for them before we even figure out what they want. And, I mean, it is, I mean, just go to any scenario where somebody's calling you, trying to selling you something, whether it's, within your business or, within, like personal life, whatever the case may be, if they start going down the path of talking about themselves and saying, we can help you with this and this and this, how do you know that those are even issues that I have, unless you're having that conversation? I do want to take a quick 60-second commercial break because Mike had asked if you could elaborate about your consulting agency. So, if you could, you have been in the industry for, well, you have way more hair than I do, but we both have been in the industry for a long time. But you provide your services, and you do consulting for MSPs. So if you could just share, for the next 60 seconds what you do and so on.
So if you don't mind, I'll shamelessly plug that I have 2 things in the sphere of my world that I work with partners on. The first thing is the consultancy of helping. Now, listen, there are a dozen, 2 dozen different programs from the technology toolkits and the 7 figures and all those different things that want you to run their sales program. Listen, those are all good people. I know all those people. They really want to help you. But I'm not a big believer that there's a one size fits all, and there's no 12-step program I can assign to you that's going to give you success. Where I focus is on helping bring the best of the person I'm working with. I'm less of a program person as much as I truly want to coach and improve performance with the people. I tend to focus on words and conversation. I find that most people in the technology industry think that they're not very. I'm too. I'm not an extrovert. I'm an introvert. I'm not good at having these conversations. And I would say I think you're wrong. I think that almost every MSP I've met has the capacity to be their own best salesperson. They just have to learn to have a better conversation and have the right conversation. They have to learn how to embrace the business person they are and not focus on where our egos are, which is the tech I am. Because again, that's I like to refer, and Norm and a few of you have heard this. I call it the Midas dealership quandary. When you go to a Midas, what do you expect to get? A muffler job, right? I know Midas. They consistently perform the best muffler jobs. They're pretty cost competitive. It's quick. It's much quicker than if I go to Joey's shop down the road that seems to take 3 days. They're going to turn me out in a couple hours. It's a quality job. This is what they're known for. But when you walk into Midas, do they sell you their toolbox? Do they tell you that I use Craftsman or I use Snap-on tools and that's why my muffler job is better? Do they sell you the training they put their techs through to put that thing up on the lift and actually replace the muffler? No, what do they sell you? They sell you the result that you went there for, which is I need a muffler replacement. That's what they sell. But when we as MSPs walk in the door, we go in and say, oh, you want a muffler job? Let me show you my screwdriver and the wrench I'm going to use to get you a muffler job. And that's where we start to focus. Stop it. Stop it. Let's talk about it. So it's back to my consulting. It's really more about how do you have the conversation, like I talked about the guy and the rules we set up for what he could say and where he could talk. And was it uncomfortable for him at first? A little bit. But once we actually just kind of walked through the conversation one time and he allowed himself to do it. First of all, we've got to remove our own barriers. I often tell people, if you want to really learn how to talk to people, go take an improv class. You'll work with all kinds of different people. You have to learn how to both listen and actually be supportive of the conversation to an outcome that's mutually beneficial. You want to learn how to have a valuable business conversation? Go take 2 or 3 improv classes. Learn how to play those silly games for a little bit. You'll be surprised at how much better you get at listening and tacitly, with context, having an intelligent conversation towards a mutually beneficial outcome. Think about that. Sounds incredibly tough. It couldn't be any easier because you do it every day of your life with your relatives, the people in the grocery store. We just have to allow ourselves to remove these inhibitors and these perceived, they're going to think I'm dumb, or I'm not smart enough for them, or I'm not going to pick the right words. Who cares? That's not what's truly important. It's more about your intent. What are you trying to accomplish? Do you really have their interest in mind? It's going to come through even if the words aren't perfect. But let's use words like investment and not cost, because the psychology. What if I said to you, I want you to invest in IT and this is the result you're going to get, and I show you what we got that result? What do people want to do with investments that pay off? They want to do more. What do you want to do with something that has a cost relative to what your income is? I want to do less. Put yourself in the right context to succeed from the very beginning. Don't sell the tech. Ask them how they're investing to get to their top 3 business goals. It's usually going to involve one of 3 things. I want to sell more. I want to sell my business. I want to grow my business. I want to open a new location. I would like to make more profit. I would like my bottom line to be better so I can pay myself more. I really need some more time to coach Joey's baseball team. These are the things they want. You got to drag that out and then sell that to them with that you're simply the vehicle that helps them get there. You're here, you want to be here for this much. You can hop in my Uber and I'll drop you at the door. And if that's a good ride, how many of you have ever taken an Uber? Good experience? Yeah? Should do it again? Yeah, I did it again and again. And then another company came out, did kind of the same thing. I took that, not so good. I went back to Uber, Well, give them the experience they want, and they're going to want more. They'll keep consuming. They won't question everything you bring before them because now I'm going to trust you. Build trust. How many of you would say that every one of your customers truly trusts you? Right? We haven't, yeah, right. Joshua, I like that. Yeah, maybe, yeah, kind of. Well, let's put ourselves in a position where that's not even a question. They know we have their best interest in mind. Intent is a biggie. I like to tell people it's like wolves. They can smell fear. If you're there because you want to make money, you're not really there to help them get what they need. They can smell it. They're going to know what you're there. They're going to know that you're putting your interest before theirs. That's not a partner. That doesn't bring me value. Stop it. Flip the script. Make your day go easier. Make them want to do more with you by having that conversation. It's about them, folks. It's not about you. It's about them. They're writing your checks. You want those checks to get bigger? Focus on them. Don't focus on your tech and what you do. Our egos don't make us money anymore. 20 years ago, when everybody had to have the tech and there was no option, our egos made us money. That doesn't fly anymore, folks. And where are you going to be in 5 years? Moore's law is not slowing down, and it's coming at us. So what are you doing to protect yourself, prepare yourself, and become somebody better? Because if you're not, the CPA firms, the insurance companies, people who are used to consulting with executives on how to run a business, what happens to every ex-MSP that actually successfully sells his business? He becomes an EOS coach, right? How many of you that or see that everywhere, right? Well, start doing that today. Be a business coach today. Don't be a technical guy. And you too will sell your MSP later, or have a great lifestyle business that provides for you and your family in ways you could never have dreamed. That guy that got 4 new accounts, he started his business with one customer with 38 systems in June. He's at 480 systems in 8 months. How many of you would cut off a pinky to have that? Right? That type of ratio. And he's not doing any marketing. They're finding him now from 4 conversations. Because now what's happening is every CPA firm in Richland, Washington's going, hey, this kid's saving me money and he's actually helping me look at my business better. And he's and the other part of my life, and here's my shameless plug. I am on a mission to bring value back to our industry. I'm tired of us being a cost. It's causing you to not be able to run the business efficiently. How do we change that? Well, I have a unique relationship with a vendor. I left the vendor industry. Somebody asked about the rebranding the consultancy, and I left selling for the Lion Guards. I was one of the founders at Adigy, if any of you know that. I was me and Jason fired that thing up. I'm super geeky sales guy. I'm ITIL certified. I'm studying my CIS. I ran our SOC 2 team and secured a SOC 2. I've gone through the audits. I've built risk ledgers. I actually do this stuff. I'm a weird duck like that, right? Um, I've aligned myself to a product called Actifile, which is very new to market because it's a natural vehicle for having a financial and risk conversation and not a technical one. So my organization, I have 2 sides of my organization. We have our coaching organization. I have partners that are also some of the most operationally sound. For example, my business partner used to run Kaseya ConnectWise 10 years ago for 40 other MSPs. He was so good at it. So we come in, we help write everything from write your scripts to writing your sales processes and how to build webinars. And we do that at night. And during the day, we are the tip of the spear into the US market for Actifile, both deployment and implementation, where I partner with people in leveraging a very new technology. It allows you to manage data as an asset based on the content, the sensitivity, and the value of the data. It is an absolute requirement that nobody's doing because every cyber insurance policy, every regulatory control, and if you look at what the feds are putting in place, everybody at some point is being required to provide data classification, chain of custody, viewing capacity. I have to be able to track where my data goes, and you must show that you're protecting your data. And I guarantee you guys, your MFA, your 365, and your firewalls, it'd take me all of about 2 hot minutes to show you how you're failing in delivering that for them. So I sell Actifile, and I do coaching for people because I have a compulsion to get our market back to where it was 20 years ago, and people appreciated us and valued what we did, and we're constantly looking to lower our price by another $5, where our costs are going up 15.
You notice Steve just told us what he did without selling us. He basically talked about more the outcome than, I do. I sit down with you and I do this and I do that and so on. Mike, I notice you're off of mute. Did you have any additional questions for Steve?
Yeah, excuse me. My question, my question when I wrote it, I noticed that he had another consulting business for like a year and then switched to this one. And I was thinking with all of his years of experience of sales, the first one had his name in it. Did he want to get away from it being just him? And now does he have a team? And that was why there was a rebrand.
Gotcha.
And yeah.
Can I listen? Anybody who knows me, I used to say open kimono, but now that I'm 55 and a little bit fat and short, it's not a pretty visual, so I won't scar your minds like that. Transparently, tax sheltering, diversification of enterprises so that I can go off and do lots of little businesses and I can work the taxes properly. So I actually launched, I launched both businesses in February of last year. My personal one, I launched about a month before the partnership, simply to have multiple LLCs for all the tax benefits and registrations and putting things in wives' names and things like that. So in complete transparency, it had nothing to do with the services I was delivering or the focus of the content. It's always been the same. My focus is on any of you know Jason Detbarn, that was the founder of Adigy. I was so well partnered with. When I told him what I was doing a year ago, you know what he said to me? It was very touching, almost as touching as what Dan opened this meeting with, because that was pretty very touching, Dan. I appreciate it. Jason said to me, he said, Steve, why I've always thought you were the best sales guy? You deliver value before you expect somebody to buy something. Think about that. Most people say, I'm willing to give you this value, but they gate it based upon you being willing to part with your money.
Yeah, it's like the book The Go-Giver. It has that concept.
Let me dig through the paperwork because it's sitting right here on the desk somewhere. Oh, here it is on this side. Yeah, it's very much
Okay.
so. I promote that to people because listen, it's proven true for me. If I wanted to go back to vendors, I know enough CROs and people that appreciate me because I've helped them in their careers. I've helped other companies understand how to go to market. I still talk to the Joe Alapats at Lion even though I don't work for them. And so I believe that the world. I believe I'm a spiritual guy, not a religious, but a spiritual guy. I believe in karma, and if you do good things come back to you. Right? The old golden rule stuff. Do unto others as you'd like to be done to. And then you pick those people who have similar mindsets. Those are the people I work with in business. If I get an MSP that all he's looking for is how do you help me increase it an extra $5, and he's just looking to get something from his customers, he doesn't focus on what they get from him. I tend to point them to other resources. They're not a good fit for me because what they're focused on is the wrong thing, in my opinion. That's strictly my opinion. It's proven to do very well for me. I've taken, my last MSP, candidly, was in 2004. We were 4 people when I walked in the door. 20 months later, we were 7. We went from 800,000, split 50 hardware, 50 services, 800,000 at an 18% EBITDA. 20 months later, we are at a 2.4 million run rate with a 78% services relative to 22% hardware and a 38% EBITDA. And I was only 7 people. I only had to add 3 headcount to do that. Right? I didn't spend a dime on marketing. I offered my time freely to the Chamber of Commerce. I offered my time freely to other people in my area. And I went out and I simply educated. I never talked about my business, but I told them things that would help them in their businesses. And at the end of every one of those sessions, no less than 5 people would walk up to me, request my card, and usually half of those would convert into customers. I wasn't selling, I was helping.
I'm sold.
Norm, you've heard me say this. Any of you wake up in the morning and say, I hope somebody sells me something this morning? Right? I've never met that person. But do you know anybody in this world that can't use some form of help? Even Elon Musk needs more access to your personal data. Everybody needs help in some way. Everybody needs help. It's the most common, consistent thing I know. I know it. So figure out how you're going to help them. Don't think about how you're going to sell them, because the help you give is an outcome they receive. They'll spend money on that. Don't focus on the money.
We talk about customer acquisition costs, and we're going to have to wrap things up here. I know we went a little bit longer, but this is great content, and just great conversation. But we talk about customer acquisition costs, and we think about those in the terms of how much did we spend on marketing?
Guys, I apologize. I didn't realize we'd gone 4 over. I'm actually late to another meeting with a client.
Okay.
Real
quick. I got to say something real quick to Steve. I knew I recognized your name. You helped me start up with that 3 years ago.
Oh, awesome.
Nice.
Which one of you is it? Who said that?
Victor Orlick.
Victor, I knew I recognized your name as well. Hey, listen, I'm so sorry I have to go. Any of you, please connect with me on LinkedIn. Open a conversation with anybody. Norm,
I'm going to do that today.
Get caught up. Talk to you guys later. Take care.
Okay,
thank you, Steve.
Bye.
Yeah, I'm just going to wrap up what I was saying is, if I remember, just because my old brain gets cloudy here, but I lost it.
Your speakers are amazing. The content is absolutely incredible. And if you're not listening to this and at least practicing the concept of him saying, hey, listen, be an EOS instructor, now while you're in business, and the ROI, not the return on investment, but the ripple out impact is fascinatingly uh, creepy, because it just slowly happens and you don't recognize
Yeah,
it. And then even post, sale, post departure, you can actually use that talent as well, but it'll benefit you now dramatically. It just takes a
absolutely.
while to show.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tony. And now I do remember what I was going to say. As far as, when we take a look at our customer acquisition cost, we know that there is a cost associated with acquiring every single one of our customers. And we typically look at that cost as far as, marketing costs, like how much did we spend, doing social media advertising, or if we're doing any kind of direct mail or whatever the cost is, right? We look at those as, um, that cost. But we need to take a look at our time and how much we invest. Like he said, what can we do to help somebody without expecting something in return? And not every dollar that we spend in marketing is going to result in a win. So not in, but we still do it because we know that we need to make that investment. The same thing is our time. When we are helping others and it's focused more on helping them instead of selling them, we're investing our time. And we got to look at that as, not every, minute, hour, whatever that we're investing into helping someone are we going to see a result. But you win some, you lose some. And that's the gamble that we take. And that's what we need to understand, is that our time in helping others, expecting something, without expecting something in return, is part of that marketing cost and that customer acquisition cost. So that's what I wanted to say. Norm, did you have your hand? You had your hand up. Was there something that you wanted to say?
Well, I just put it in the chat, but he does do what he says. I reached out to him and we had a number of conversations, and I ended up really benefiting by it.
Good. Very good. He's a great guy. Feel free to reach out to him if there's something that he can help you with. Um, any parting words from anybody?
I don't have time for it today, but and I'm not sure if I'll make the call Friday, but I could spend a hot minute on mentoring and what that could look like and how that could benefit you as an individual. So
Yeah. Is anybody is that something that you wanted to touch on right now?
we could, yeah, we could save it for another day. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. With that being said, I hope everybody enjoyed today's session. As always, we work to bring value of outside experts. That's the whole goal of WTF Wednesdays. What the function, bringing in a business function expert. Next week, which shockingly is going to be Wednesday, March 5th already. We will have a special guest. We'll have two guests. We'll have Bob Coppage, and also we're going to have one of his clients that is a co-managed client, and we're going to talk about how this co-managed client made the decision to leverage, the services of Bob and Simplex IT. Just I wanted to bring in a different perspective of bringing in somebody's client as far as why they went co-managed, what are the benefits, and how this can help you as an MSP if you're looking to continue to drive forward in the area of co-managed. Nothing can be more, I mean, we can talk all day. We can have an MSP talk about how they're doing co-managed all day, but to be able to have a client who's using the services, I think will be extremely valuable, very insightful. That's next week, Wednesday. So, with that being said, everybody, hope you all have a great rest of your day. And tomorrow we do have elevator pitch. So if you haven't signed up for elevator pitch, be sure to sign up for that. And then, of course, Friday at noon Eastern time, we have our normal MSP discussion group call. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Take care.